You're listening to the Reframing Ministries podcast, providing strength for today and hope for tomorrow for caregivers and their families. Connect with Colleen and other caregivers on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, where you can find a community of people who get it and explore all our resources. Now, here's Colleen.
Hi there, my name is Colleen Swindoll Thompson, and I have the tremendous joy of welcoming back our good friend Jolene Philo. Jolene, welcome back.
Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Colleen.
You're very welcome. You have quite a story to tell us, and I'm so excited about telling everyone about it. Last time we talked about the post-traumatic stress disorder and some of the studies that you had done on that, which was fabulous. This time, you have a new book coming out for caregivers called the Caregiver Journal, which is phenomenal. And I would love for you to tell us how that got started. Where does that come from?
Sure. Well, it's actually called the Caregiver's Notebook, just so people look for the right thing.
There you go.
But
Sorry.
I had an idea for a long time that something like that would be good, and I even had made a mention of it to my publisher, and it didn't go anywhere. But about a year ago, 2 years ago, my editor emailed and said we were just talking about several of us are caring for people, and we thought how great it would be to have a notebook, a portable notebook. And we were thinking, who could maybe write that? And I thought, oh, Jolene could write that. And so she emailed and asked me to send a proposal. So I did. And it also grows from my own personal experience, because my father was disabled the entire time I was growing up. He was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 2 in 1959. And died at age 67 in 1997. So, and I can't remember him walking. His MS, you took him down pretty quickly, but he was in our home for many, many years. And of course, medical care and the complexity of what Mom had to deal with then was quite different than today. But she was not an organized person. You know, she would write herself a note about something and then lose it. And the idea of like a magnet on the refrigerator to keep those notes in place, it never occurred to her. So there was always this constant hunting for stuff. You know, where's this? Where's a pencil? Where's a paper? Where's my purse?
I love your mother.
And she did a great job of raising us and keeping Dad in the home. But I watched that and thought, oh my gosh, there's got to be a better way. So then when our son was born in 1982 and had his own special needs, again, it was also, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know he had any issues. So we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants for the first month or so. But I did even then write things down in a journal and kind of kept track of things and thankfully had a good memory. But I wish that I had had something like this so I wouldn't have had to rely on my memory. And so it was really fun when they asked me, would you like to make this? It's like, yes, and I have ideas of exactly what I want it to be like.
Not a lot of pens and pencils and paper scattered all over the house or all over the desk, like is what in my house, which is why I love this so much. Now, some of the things I think that our audience needs to know is that caregiving is quite on the rise. And after doing some studies the other day, I found that 48.5 million, that's higher. I have to get my glasses because it looked like a 3. Hello. It's 43.5 million Americans are caregivers to people ages 50 or older.
Yeah.
40 to 70% of caregivers have clinically significant signs of depression, anxiety, which you're so familiar with, and PTSD. 72% of family caregivers report never going to the doctor. I wanted to overlook that one. 55% skip doctor appointments altogether, and almost 70% have very poor health. Finally, across the board, the stress is so significant it can reduce a caregiver's life by 7 to 10 years. Not to mention the cardiac issues that are involved. So having a notebook like you've put together, and I know this is not Here, let me just show it to you. Well, it's going to show my notes. There, you can kind of see it a little bit. But then if I do that, I cheat and show all my notes. But you've put this in such an organized way. Now, is this just for children? Is this for older people? What's your audience?
I tried to make it useful for any caregiver. So if you're the parent of a child with special needs, it can be used for, you can use it. If you're caring for an aging parent, you can use it. If you're the spouse to someone, a younger person who has a young adult or an older adult who has special needs but isn't yet a senior citizen, can be used there. And I also, when I get my first ones, I told my husband, the first thing we're going to do is fill out one of these for each of us. And we're going to have all of our legal information and our insurance information and anything we have about medications and our contact people all listed. So if something would happen to one of us, our kids would be able to come in and have that information. We won't fill out the calendar yet because we don't really need that. We don't have that many appointments. But we'll have all the information in one place. And I think I think anybody in the baby boomer generation for themselves could get that filled out and have a very useful tool also.
Well, it's interesting because every time we go to the doctor, they will say, do you have an end of life? Do you have a living will? Do you have a do not resuscitate or a DNR? And of course, we look at them and say, we should, but we don't. And you have it in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other one is like every time you go to the eye doctor or your dentist, they say, what's your list of medications and what are your dosages? Well, I can never remember, but if I had that notebook and had the habit of, okay, I'll pick this up and take it with me, I could just show them the page and they could write down all my medications right there.
Well, or they can copy it because now everything is electronic. Well, if you want to see the kind of notebooks, I felt rather organized myself when I had these two. I don't know if you can even see these. Those are two of my 3 notebooks for Jonathan, and he is only 17. So if you don't want to carry around a 5-inch binder to each appointment, that is fabulous. Now I noticed at the end also you have some covers for folders even.
Yeah, there's supposed to be. I should be getting the first hard copy probably early next week. It's supposed to be coming from the printers, but there's supposed to be a pocket on the front and the back cover. So if you get any paperwork, while you're at an appointment, you can tuck it in there and then take it home and either file it where it needs to be or put the information in your notebook and you're good. Another way that we're going to be using the notebook is my mother lives with my brother, but she comes, I go down and take her to appointments every Tuesday, and she visits us now and then. She visits my sister now and then. So we're going to get this notebook together for her. And then whenever she travels, it's going to go with her so that if we need to look anything up, we can. And that's one of the main reasons we made it a portable, easy to open, smaller in size notebook so it could travel well.
Well, that's one of the things that I do love about it is because there are certain appointments where I do not need to have all of his IEPs, but I do need to have his medical insurance information with me or whatever. So there is some versatility to this, you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What about feeling overwhelmed? Because when I first started looking through it, as I do with any caregiving task, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. There are pages on all kinds of legal documents, insurance documents. You and I know that language. It still is overwhelming. Yes, it is.
I would recommend that people just look at it and think, okay, I'm just going to do one section this month, maybe. And you start with the emergency information, because wouldn't you want that in place first? So do everything you can to do the emergency information. Then when you're done with that, maybe go on, and you can pick and choose after that. Maybe you want to fill in the medications part and spend a month. Maybe you want to do contacts. Maybe you want to get a schedule done in the routines and schedules section if you have a lot of caregivers coming in and working. And just do one a month. I'm also going to be posting on my website, differentdream.com, starting sometime in November when the book is released. I'm making some how-to videos, just showing people how to fill out one section And then each Friday, probably, I will put up another section until they're all posted. So people can go in at their own leisure and, listen to somebody and watch how somebody fills it out. That's always easier than trying to figure it out by yourself or follow written directions. And then if they have questions, they can certainly contact me through my website, which again is differentdream.com.
Well, one of the things that I do absolutely love is that you are going to offer the videos, because there are areas where I had questions as I was looking through different pages. Well, what insurance number would I put here, or what insurance, or whatever would I put there? Now, do you type it? Do you use pen, pencil? What?
I would always use pencil on the whole thing, because you're going to make your notebook last longer. It has a 3-year calendar, and that's blank, so you can start filling that in whenever you want to, and then in pencil. And then I would just fill in all the information with pencil, because I was just talking to to a relative recently, and she said, her husband works for the same company, but every year for the last 3 years, their insurance has changed. They've gone to another provider.
Yes.
Well, if you write everything down in pen, eventually you're going to run out of spaces in the notebook for everything. If you do it in pencil, you can just erase out the old stuff and put in the new.
Or you can erase whatever you don't want to address and live in denial for a while.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jolene, one of the things that I love, because we know about stress and it being so high and it taking a toll on our physical health and emotional health and our spiritual health. Mm-hmm. 2 things I would love for you to expand upon is your little sections for the stress relief. And I don't know if you can see it here, but one of it says stress reliever, and it gives a little tip if you've been entrusted with the care of more than one person, and then you go on to explain that. If you could help expand that, that would be great while I fix my earpiece that just came out.
You want me to deal with that one stress reliever that we were just talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
or just throughout the book.
Yeah. Well, that one, I had somebody at a workshop where I was teaching people how to organize who asked me, do I need one book or 2? I'm taking care of my child and my father. And I was like,
question.
Well, yeah, it was. And I said, well, of course, the salesperson in me says immediately you need 2.
4.
What or 4. But that's up to you. Yes. I did say my guess is you might need separate calendars if they both have a lot of care. So, okay. But I put the stress relievers throughout the book, just trying to think of those little things that come up, and when you're stressed, you can't problem solve very well, and you don't have time to call somebody and ask. So I tried to think of things. What would stress me out about this? What would I wonder about? What would make it hard for me to complete this section? And then I took those things that I thought of and wrote the little stress relievers, just so that I could hopefully address those issues and take that stress away from caregivers.
Another thing that I love that you have scattered throughout, I don't know if you found this common in other caregiving notebooks or workbooks, but you have a lot of biblical passages. And one today that I read out of James, even though I know it, just seeing it here, James 1:5-6. If you do not know what you're doing, pray to the Father. He loves to help. You'll get his help and won't be condescended to when you ask for it. Ask boldly, believing without a second thought. That impacted my prayer before we started today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of grew out, well, first of all, Discovery House suggested I do some Bible verses, but a lot of them, I went back to my first book that I wrote, A Different Dream for My Child, which is devotionals for parents of kids with special needs. And because a lot of the feedback I got on that was how meaningful the Bible verses were for parents.
Absolutely, yes.
So I went and I mined that first. I thought I've already found a lot of these. And then I included ones that aren't in there but have always been meaningful to me. And then I also went to my book, Different Dream Parenting, where I had a lot of Bible passages and looked at that also. So, excuse me. So that's where a lot of the Bible verses came from, because, when you're in the middle of caregiving, you don't always have time to sit down and read a chapter. And you just need a verse that maybe is specifically to your situation. and something that will bring you comfort or give you strength or help you persevere. And so that's what those verses try to do.
And sometimes you're a little bit irritated with the Lord. And not that you would ever be, but
no.
I have been at times. And so it calls me back to remembering to yield, to give myself back to his will, not my will, but that he will promise the Holy Spirit is there for us.
And I think too, the idea that, yes, we yield to his will, but he already knows what we're feeling. So it's okay to tell him and to say, here's what I really want. This is what I think I need. Please, Lord, if it's your will, give it to me now. I need it now.
Now, what happens when those moments that we don't feel like he hears us? Is there an area for notes or for journaling or for writing some things down?
There are areas throughout all of the different sections of the book. So in the calendar area, there's little places for notes. In the contact area, there's some places at the end for notes, medications, whatever. But there's also just one section that's just notes, and it's just blank pages where you can write things down. You can write down your thoughts if you need to. If you're going to be going to the doctor with your loved one, you can write down the questions you want to make sure to ask, or if you're going to talk to a teacher or a therapist or whatever, that note section can be used however you want. I mean, you can even play tic-tac-toe on it, use it to play tic-tac-toe in the waiting room if you want.
You can play connect the dots or hang the man.
Hangman, whatever.
Whatever works. Now, what about taking it to like IEP, or in Texas they call them ARD appointments, where you're making notes? Because I've been told, and I wholeheartedly agree, never sign any legal document. Would you take this to something like that just to make notes?
I sure would. Yeah, okay. I would. And I'd keep those appointments in there. Now, you and I both know, I was a teacher for 25 years. The amount of paperwork you get if your child has an IEP is immense. And believe me, it's not the schools that want that. It's government law, and they have to follow the laws through those forms. But you will get more forms than you could fit in your 3-ring binder. You don't need to take all those with you. You need to keep copies of them and maybe take the most current ones with you to those meetings. Okay. So I don't try to make a way to house all that IEP and school stuff in this notebook. It would defeat the purpose.
Yes.
But I do at the end in the resource section have some websites people can go to download forms and to make their own notebooks.
In fact, I have some of those resources that you have, well, the reading plans, but also, there are resources for financial assistance, for adults, for children, for caregivers, helps for when you go to the doctors, when you're at the dentist. I mean, Jolene, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much is out there. It really is when I started doing the research. And another thing I will have at my Different Dream website is a page where I will try to post when I find new resources, try and post links to that or give some hints or direct people to a good website, because I don't want to try and be the be all and the end all and the expert. I just want to point people to what they need.
What is it that you think they need the most? I'm going to put you on the spot. That is just not one of the questions that I had written down to ask. But what is it?
I think every caregiver needs a support system and a community. One of the hardest things about caregiving is that you are isolated because you're with a person that possibly can't get out as much as you would like. And so somehow we've got to get a community to them. And that is one of the best things I think about the internet, is that even if you can't get out of your home, there are encouragement groups you can sign up for online, and meet with other caregivers just online. You don't have to line up another caregiver or babysitter or whatever. You can reach out. There are Facebook groups, for adult caregivers, for people whose parents have Alzheimer's, whatever. But you've got to have that support group. And at some level, as a Christian, it has to have a spiritual component. Yes. I mean, we can be part of, and I think it's important for us as Christians to be part of those kinds of groups that don't necessarily have a Christian connection or a mission statement that's Christ related, but we need to be involved in those because you can share your faith there and you can tell what helps you. And it is a way of getting that light out to people who really need it.
You know, what's interesting, I've been reading some studies on the spiritual support or spiritual aspects of influence and caregiving. And the greater spiritual influence given to a family or an individual who is a caregiver actually is showing signs that there's reduced cardiovascular problems, there's reduced stress, reduced confusion, reduced divorce and conflict in marriage. So we can't even argue that the spiritual aspect of it is so valuable. In fact, just today came this reading, and I love it. It's from one of the meditations from Richard Rohr, which I seem to be quoting often lately. But just today it says life is participation. Most of us were not raised to understand that we are participating in something that is already happening. Rather, we are given tasks to accomplish individually and completely, which is where the overwhelming part comes in. But he didn't write that here. This placed the entire burden on a single isolated person, like what you just said. That is not participation. That is perfectionism. Thinking I have to do it all or that I even can do it all. The good news is it's not about being correct. It's about being connected. When the spirit within you connects with God's spirit given from without, you are finally home. And then he goes on to say about the Apostle Paul, which I didn't know this. Maybe you know this already. The Apostle Paul does not primarily talk about individuals. He describes something much larger in which we are participating. His most common phrase, Paul uses 164 times, in Christ. Isn't that fantastic?
It really is.
In Christ, we are connected and we don't have to do all of this alone.
Exactly. Yeah.
What if you look back, what were some of your more lonelier moments?
Oh, goodness. Of course, the first one I think was when our son was first born and was flown away from us. And the hospital where he was born was 90 miles from where we lived. And so my husband had to drive back up there to get clothes because we knew we were going to have to go. And so my son was already on his way to Nebraska. We were in South Dakota. My husband was on the way back home. And all I could do was lay in the hospital bed and wonder where he was. So that was probably the loneliest. And then word, of course, it was a smaller hospital in Spearfish, South Dakota. Word got out that our baby had been transferred. And so every single nurse's assistant and nurse who came in, every one of them brought me another pack of baby stuff. You know, the little freebie baby stuff.
Yes.
Oh, because that was all they could think of to do. Oh, you may need this. Here, I brought you one. I think we had 10. I called it my pile of kindness. And every time another one brought it in, I just pointed to the chair and just started to cry all over again because they were doing what they could. You know, they were being as kind as they could. I think another time when I felt really alone was then when our son was 2 months and he was nursing and he passed out. We didn't realize that, my husband had to revive him. It was in the middle of the night. So he got him revived and it was another trip by ambulance down to Spearfish and then from Spearfish to Rapid where they figured out that the scar in his esophagus had closed off and so all the milk was aspirating into his lungs. So that resulted then in another trip to Omaha. And this time I got to fly with Alan, but again, it was alone. And I think it was my birthday. So it was really hard not to feel self-pity, and I was only 26, I have to give myself a break. I was pretty young. So that was a lonely time. Those were probably the loneliest. The longer we've dealt with different issues and the more I've seen God come through. Now I'm going to get all teary.
That's okay. That usually
those-
happens.
When those things come up again, I'm more and more confident that God is with me and that I am not alone. And he sends these little things, these weird things will happen, that.
Like heavenly weird things.
Yeah, it's like, how come this person, the day I was really low and the day there was something serious going on, this person who I haven't heard from in 2 months, sends me a message on Facebook. And this is a person who always prays, and it's like, oh, all right. So, and I've seen that.
And you write that down in your notebook.
Yeah, exactly. You can write that down, put it on the calendar. God showed up today.
Because repeatedly, the Lord says, remember, remember, remember. And I forget when he's faithful. I forget those Facebook messages, those phone calls. I talked with someone the other day who's come down with a 3rd round of cancer, and the first time she found out about it, she called one friend and then they weren't home, and called another and they weren't home, and you feel utterly helpless.
Yes.
And then someone called, in fact, that she was a bit at odds with, and it ended up being the very gift that she needed to nurture her heart. So this is something that can be used not just as a documentation tool, but as a lifeline for our souls.
It really can. In the Bible, they always put down the stones of remembrance in the Old Testament. So you could even on the calendar pages, you could go in and make a little stone. Another stone of remembrance right here. Another one here.
And you don't have to carry it around. Well, I'm going to make a confession. I have never, although I've tried to, I've never thoroughly read through all of the Bible. And I love your reading plan, how you start it month by month. I'm going to show this here. I know it's I think you can see it there, but you go day by day. And I know we can pull those up, but when you're in a hospital, sometimes you have not remembered your Bible. And so you can just turn this page and then read and write down, Lord, I need you today.
Yeah. And that was, I hadn't even actually thought of that. My editor was the one who suggested it. The book is published through Discovery House Publishers, and that's part of Radio Bible Class Ministries, and they do the Daily Bread devotionals. That's probably what they're most famous for. Okay. And they put out a Bible reading plan every year that kind of goes along with their Daily Bread devotionals. So I said, why don't we just use that one? And then, if you've got somebody who's also a Daily Bread reader, then they've got a little devotion and their Bible reading right there. And we can just go with that. I've read through the Bible plans many times and just have always found them very helpful. It's kind of one of those things. I'm just a reader and I...
Well, I am too, but you're more spiritual than I.
I don't think that's it. It was just one of those things, I was like about in 7th or 8th grade, maybe it was confirmation class, where somebody said you can read through the Bible if you read 2 chapters of the Old Testament and 1 of the New. You can read it in a year. And I thought, well, okay, I'll try that. So I started young. It's not the best Bible reading plan because when you get in Leviticus, oh my gosh,
Does anybody have a good Bible reading plan for Leviticus? I don't know.
There are some good ones. What I like there's some chronological ones too. A chronological Bible reading plan is nice, especially if they have you do some Old Testament and some New Testament, so that you're always getting a little that you really will be able to connect with.
Okay. Now, what else does this, this to me is an unbelievable Christmas present. And so since we're going to be airing this during Christmas and all through the year, this could be one of the most useful Christmas presents I think anyone could give to a caregiver ever. I'm going to give it to myself.
Yeah, right.
Because a lot of times people say, I wish the church would know how to help. Well, here you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice if every church just had a bunch of those, and then when somebody turned 60, they just gave them one? Or if they found out about a caregiving family, just give them one.
Well, or if a church had one and they had a new family that
Yes.
came to visit, whatever age the person is, this is a great place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's even room in there for child immunizations and all of that to keep track of that. So it would make a good baby present because, those first 3 years of a baby's life, you really are, it's that same kind of caregiving. So you could use it then.
Yes. Jolene, I just got Johnny's new book, Beside Bethesda, and she writes in here, because you were just talking about some of those moments of being utterly alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we really are as caregivers, and there's purpose in that, I'm finding, that God takes everything away so we're left with him.
Mm-hmm.
And she writes in here, remember, at your weakest, most vulnerable moment, you are never nearer to the, now I'm going to cry, to the unlimited, inexhaustible power and love of our living Christ. Reach out your hand, and if you can't manage that, just lift your finger. Whatever you need, however dire it may seem, he will meet you with the resources of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a promise that we all need to be reminded of.
Mm-hmm.
This tool is invaluable, and our Heavenly Father is the one that empowers us.
Right.
Is there anything that you want to say as we come to a close to caregivers or to those receiving care? Buy the book?
Oh, yeah, a whole nother book there. I would just say it's so important, again, to get support, to find people who will listen to you. If you can't get to church because of your caregiving duties, you need to figure out some way to be connected, to let a pastor at the church know, or if there's some kind of a shut-in visitation ministry that could meet you. There are lots of online churches now. Keyministry.org has what they call front door church, where it can be taken right into your home, and they're not tele-evangelists trying to sell books and get your money. They're just trying to provide. Sorry about that. They're just trying to.
No, don't be sorry. You're exactly right, because Steve and I have talked about doing one, and I know our friend Barbara, who I interviewed, has been a host for one, and it truly is bringing church into the home.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. So I would say you need to connect that way. You need to. It seems hard at first when you're trying to organize all this stuff that you've not organized. But the level of comfort and relief you will feel if you've got things organized so you can find what you need,
right,
is just, it's like a burden off your shoulders. It's an unburdening when you get it written down, because you don't have to remember everything on your own anymore. And that is so important. So, I really encourage people to, come November 2014, when I start posting the how-tos for the book, to watch them. Even if you don't want to buy the notebook, watch it and get some ideas about how you could create your own system.
Now, I have a lot of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just said because it's so important. I was done.
It is, and I think one of the greatest gifts could be to have a family in a church who may not know how to help say, let me help you put this paperwork together.
Oh, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm.
What a gift that would be. Mm-hmm. Let me just fill in that one section for you. Mm-hmm. Let's look at the medications. I'll write them all down in pencil, and here's my gift to you. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be great?
It would be. Or even, let me research and I'll find and download all the legal forms that you need. The do not resuscitate, the living will, the power of attorney. I'll get everything downloaded, and I'll even go with you, when we get things notarized. And that would be
downloading forms is a great idea. See, there are some very easy, very inexpensive Christmas ideas right then and there.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I read this last time in our time together, but I really want to honor our caregivers. And I know that for you who are watching, you may be a church pastor or a leader who has said, I really don't have time for this. It's like it's a gnat on my shoulder. I don't want to deal with this. You really don't have to. There are so many resources, and this is one of them for sure, that I have found in 17 years of looking, and I've looked. This is an incredible resource. But you also may be a caregiver that's very tired and are longing for someone to come in, like Jolene just explained. Those moments on an airplane or airport or in the car alone. This is a poem that says, unknown and often unnoticed, you are a hero nonetheless. For your love, sacrificial is God at its best. You walk by faith in the darkness of the great unknown, and your courage, even in weakness, gives life to your beloved. You hold shaking hands and provide the ultimate care. Your presence, the knowing that you are simply there. You rise to face the giant of disease and despair. It is your finest hour, though you may be unaware. You are resilient, amazing, and beauty unexcelled. You are the caregiver, and you are doing it well.
That is really good. I wish I'd had that to put in my book.
Well, I'll send it to you. Maybe they can do an addendum. It's by Bruce McIntyre, and I found it on the Caregiving website. I'm sure you get Caregiving Alliance or the Caregiving Network. I'll send it to you, though, because I have it here.
Thank you.
But I think that I think we all need to be reminded that you're doing an amazing job.
That's right.
Jolene, do you have any closing words you want to say to those who are caregivers who are maybe in the hospital or are longing for someone just to be a companion, not to say something or hand them another kit, but just to be there?
I would just tell them I know where you are and I have been there. And you can always pray and you can count on God sending someone. You may not recognize that person at first, but eventually you will see, oh, that person did and gave me exactly what I needed, what I didn't even know I needed at that moment. And I would really encourage them, while the Caregiver's Notebook is an organizational tool, it's written for organizing your loved one's stuff. It's also written as an encouragement to caregivers. So there is all sorts of stuff in there that speaks not to your loved one, but to you as the caregiver. There are excerpts from devotional books by caregivers. There's the Bible reading plan for the caregiver to use. There are prayer guides in the back, monthly prayer guides for the caregiver to use. The encouraging quotes in the Bible verses are for the caregiver, not necessarily for the loved one you're caring for. The caregiver, you are every bit as important as the loved one that you are caring for, and you are doing a job that that is eternal. You know, what you are doing for this person changes them and it changes you, and it is good work.
And you're doing a wonderful job, Jolene, because you are continuing to be a caregiver. In the midst of all this other stuff, I don't know how you do it.
You know, just do it. We all do it.
Are you writing down your own medication list? No, I'm just kidding. Jolene, how can people get a hold of you? I'd love the link share, so I would love for them to know how to find that too.
Say that again. You'd want them to find what? I had a little blip.
The link share, how we get to share different links on Tuesday.
Oh, sure. Yeah. If you go to differentdream.com, I post something every Monday through Friday. There's something up there. But Tuesday is always a link share. And anyone who is has a special needs blog of any kind of caregiving. You can post links of things you've written there, or if you've read something really good at a site and you want to post that there. It goes up every Tuesday. And then the nice thing is that you can just go there and you can start clicking on those links, and you don't have to search the web for 20 or 25 different encouraging bits of information or resources. It's all there. So every Tuesday, people submit whatever they want. Some are from general market websites, some are from Christian websites, but they are all special needs based. So I'd encourage anybody.
It's at differentdream.com.
It's at differentdream.com every Tuesday. Yep.
Well, I just thank you for providing this incredible resource. And I know in the middle of the holiday season, it's incredibly busy. This is something that someone can just go onto Amazon or eBay or wherever, download it, have it sent to the person's house, and it's done. It's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
For you who are caregivers, or for you who don't know where to begin, maybe you've just had a diagnosis, or maybe you've just received a diagnosis, or another additional challenge has come your way. Not even an illness. It could be divorce and depression during the month of December skyrocket. And so I would like you to know we care about that at Insight for Living and at differentdream.com. So will you please connect with us if there's something that has struck you, if you're in need of some hope. You need to be reminded that God is listening to you, even though you feel He may not be. Or if you just want someone to talk with you or to listen, I really would love for you to connect with us at insight.org or with Jolene, and all of this will be in our show notes.